Musharraf Hussain Khan. Now I request Dr. Abdul Qaiyum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Abdul Mateen, for this opportunity. I hail from Park Circus. My father was Bengali. My mother is from UP. My grandmother is from UP as well. But my grandfather was from Bengal. So I really want to know how much Bengali I am. Anyway, I don't know. So my PhD work was on Muslims in two districts, Bardhaman and in North Chobbish Pargana. And the focus was to try and locate how land becomes an important factor in achievement of education and getting occupation. This is a sociological study, so please bear with me. So, in the literature on Muslims, you'll see an overarching focus on violence, and it's always on physical forms of violence, never the systemic violence which has invisibilized our community so much. And then the categories, the forms of knowledge and discourses which are produced, it also creates a form of epistemic violence as well. A novel attempt in this regard was made by such a committee report, which tried to identify the processes of socio-economic marginalization among the Muslim community. They identified a concept called development deficit, which was used to understand the lack of progress and development within the Muslims in terms of different indicators such as health, education, formal employment, access to bank credit, and physical infrastructure. Often it is understood, and I heard that it happened today as well, that the lack of progress within the Muslim community is caused due to endogenous factors. That is, the community itself is held responsible for its backwardness. Further, the lack of security and the consequent segregation and ghettoization, if I use the word, of the community has only exacerbated the systemic disprivileging of the community. Literacy niye onek kotha hoyeche, tao ami ekটু bolbo. There have been improvements in the educational indicators, simply in the primary sector, and I will not go deep into it. But I used two reports to understand how well we are doing in the primary sector. But we are improving, but there are so many debilitating systemic processes and indicators which make it difficult for our population in general to achieve literacy. Other than the factors intrinsic to the functioning of the schools, the indulgence in household and agriculture work make it difficult for some children to complete primary schooling. However, the lack of performance at the primary level cannot entirely be reduced to poor socio-economic condition of the family. Rather, the aspirations of the education within the family depends on the general perception of education within the village. It depends on the government policies, the sensitization towards the importance of education, and the understanding of trade-offs it requires in terms of economic returns. This is what my work will discuss, and I have changed the names of the villages because of ethical reasons. So one of my village, which is there in Bardhaman, it is an agricultural village. It has a lot of schools nearby. There is a private school, there are government schools. But the colleges are always very far away. And it becomes, if you want to do a master's in Bengali, let's say, you have to travel a lot. Or if you want to do a graduation in chemistry, you have to go and stay far away from the village to study. It becomes a difficult prospect in that sense. So I will look at how education is increasingly not being considered by my respondents as a strategy of upward social mobility. And I am looking at, especially in Mondagram, the name of the village which I have changed, at the middle farmers. I'll take the narrative from Iman Sheikh, one of my respondents. He has two sons and one daughter. Sons work in Kerala as masons or laborers in the informal sector. Elder son was a bright student but had to leave the studies to support the family and help repay the overwhelming debt caused buy the expensive surgery to Iman. The second son also left his studies as he wanted to join his brother and become independent. The respondents claim that it was the decision of the sons to leave the village and find work, as the opportunities after higher education are not that many, with many to compete with. They made the choice to earn and accumulate savings to buy land for themselves. There are different corollary trends of thought with regard to education. On the one hand, we find that there is definite demand for education among the Muslim families in the age group of 16 to 22. However, the same age group does not find or consider that the pursuit of higher education would bear them any fruits. There are quite a few reasons which were given by the youngsters. The lack of jobs, corruption, and the lack of enough money to buy into jobs available in the railways, schools, or administrations made them question the whole purpose of higher education and consider it futile. As a result, they are more than ready to use their social capital, that is the networks they form within the village with their friends, and to go and work in a different state where the pay is good, often 700, 800 rupees per day, and accumulate enough savings to live a good life. In their view, a good life for a landless, marginal and small landowner means earn and save enough to buy land and build a house. So there is again contrasting cases as well, where Hali Mondal, one of my respondents, his mother owned no land. The enterprising woman, started the business of selling rice grains after processing it and accumulated enough savings over the course of 27 years to buy 8 bighas of land. And now, with the help of Noor, my respondent, they own 15 bighas of land. However, his mother was illiterate and he himself could not study beyond the primary level. So children often form a veritable source of labor once they cross the age of 10, and here the mother could do with some help from the son. Interestingly, the prosperity which came late to the family has managed to bear fruits for the prospects of Noor's children. He has a son and 2 daughters. The son is the eldest and is doing his graduation, while the daughters are finishing their higher secondary examinations. He wants the daughters to study for as long as they want to. It is here that he differs from the big landowners, some of my respondents, who did not let the children study any further than what they had to. It is he always argued, the respondent, the big farmers always argued that that they need to concentrate and contribute to the business which they are expanding within the village. There are periodic changes in the land ownership of the farmers, with some opting to invest in additional businesses and use family labor to build their savings. Then there is the case of slow but steady accumulation of savings to buy land and build on the inheritance. And then there is the instance of medium farmers who value education more than accumulation of land or savings. The diversity of perspectives towards upward mobility says a lot about the liminal class position occupied by the middle farmers and the methods of dealing with the vicissitudes of life. It also points towards a gradual loss of political capital among the medium landowning farmers to get involved in the decision-making process. The medium farmers as a category are not homogeneous, and even though the leaders with political and kinship capital may be from the same class as the respondents above, the differentiation inherent in class location, the specificity of their landholding, dependence on family labor, different strategies used in the perspective towards upward mobility, and the change in the nature of politics from party-based organized decision-making to money muscle power has wrested away the control from the middle farmers as a political category. The next village I'll discuss is in Barashad, North Chubbish Pargana. It is a village where the population is dependent on aquaculture, that is shrimp farming. We witness a collectivization of land as the village shifted from agriculture to aquaculture. Kin networks become important as land belonging to different kin members, if cultivated together in a collectivized manner, minimizes the risk of loss, which is a high probability in prawn and shrimp business. It has an adverse effect if kin members venture into competition. A huge loss for anyone could yield gains for the other, locating them at different class positions within a year. It also adversely affects relations within the family. However, if there is collectivization of land, differences in class location can still emerge depending on who owns how much and the strategies used by the kin members to use the profits earned by the collective member. venture. So this village is very interesting in the sense that if you enter the village, you will find that the roads are really bad. Roads are really bad, but they own so much land, they own properties, they own all the indicators which show like a prosperous life. But the facilities available to them, the facilities which were there, like the lack of schools, the lack of roads, lack of proper healthcare, everything was far away. So an argument could be that if capitalism, if a capitalist venture into shrimp business is coming into a village, then it should have an effect on the other infrastructural facilities as well, which was not the case here. So it was observed that the majority of the children from the Muslim areas visited the school in a private school in a para, whereas the government school was preferred by the scheduled caste, which also provided midday meals. I'll skip to how Al-Amin Mission, which we have discussed here before as well, has also contributed there. Al-Amin Mission is an institution run by a trust of philanthropists. They offer education which would prepare the students for engineering and medical exams, and often take the best students through a written entrance examination. They offer partial scholarship to exceptionally meritorious students. It also serves as secure bastion where the learning balances the dini, the spiritual and dunyavi through its syllabus. A security against not only the fear that the children would never learn the Muslim way of life, it is also against the money-seeking and greed-based milieu existing within the village. As a result, it becomes a matter of respect and reputation if one's son or daughter can study in this school. This is a primary example of community coming together in its effort to improve the educational standards of the community. However, it also points to apparent lack of good quality government institutions. Respondents either save money to be able to afford to send their sons to the school, or plan to take extra work to help their son get in, as the children from other rich households often opt to study in that school. In contrast, there is no demand for the local madrasa in the village. A majority of the students there are from outside the village. Rather, the respondents think of it as a substandard educational institution and not a viable alternative to mainstream schools. Al-Amin Mission thus has become a status and affirming as well as a springboard for many to become upwardly mobile. I'll give the example and a narrative from my respondent. Asif, who taught at the nearby school, owned by his own uncles, as well as offering tuitions to many students in the surrounding village, did not have an income more than 5,000 rupees. So, in a way, he wanted to change his earning potential so that he could send his sons to Al-Amin Mission. And he thought it would be a better idea to take up a stitching job, like মাটিয়া পুরুষ থেকে অনেকজন কাপড় নিয়ে আসে আর এখানে সেলাই করা, তো ওটাতে অনেক টাকা আছে তাই so he was trying to buck the trend within the village where education is considered necessary but only as a second priority to earning money and prosperity. Asif represents a section of the population who wants their children to attain good education and become upwardly mobile using the little means that they have, and Al-Amin provides the reference point of success. Education does not fit into the system in which money is earned quickly and easily. It is a long-term investment and the desired government job is not easy to procure. And however, since the requirement of time is such that children need to be taught to walk with their head high and create a distinction between the illiterate and themselves. The point is not always to bring their education to use, rather it is enough to attain a level of education which is considered respectable by others. As opposed to a tendentious generalization, the perspective towards education should here be tempered by the class as well as land ownership background of the respondents. I'll look into how there are different other respondents within my fieldwork who have to often, along with their education, work within the family to become upwardly mobile. And there are these cousins called Monirul and Bokul or Shahid. They come from little means, and I'll read. So the cases of Moni and Bokul, who are cousins and stand in contrast to the elder cousins living within the same vicinity. The elder cousins are much more richer, they own much more land. So While the elder cousins Mirtaz and his younger brother were able to finish their masters in Bengali and English respectively, Moni and Bokul have had to struggle to finish their graduation. While Bokul dropped out of Alaming Mission due to a lack of funds from the family and continued his schooling in a government school, Moni has had to take up a job to help his family while finishing his graduation. Moni works as a gram saver and Bokul helps his parent in the stitching job. Whereas Mirtaz, his cousin, and his brother, they both have good urban jobs. Like Mirtaz works in an NGO while his brother has passed a teacher entrance test and managed to become a high school teacher. The difference between their educational pursuits and sorry, time is over. I got the availability of capital in its different forms. Makes it possible for some to continue an unhindered path to education, whereas for some respondents, it becomes difficult to invest time exclusively for education. It is not an easy and straightforward path towards higher education. And here I'll bring in Craig Jeffrey's work on UP. In his article, he discusses the concept of time pass as the recognition of having surplus time and the inability to make good use of it. As a consequence, they are often being left behind. He highlights the overdetermined nature of young men's temporal anxiety, which is reflected in their frustration about unemployment, exclusion for secure adulthood, and isolation relative to time spaces of modernity and development. He refers to how the disappointment of being unable to acquire secure salaried work despite having spent a long time in formal education, the frustration of being unable to travel and start a family in a manner of a successful man, and the sense of loss of that accompanies being removed from the spaces associated with modernity and development. So the class bias of course exists when it comes to determination of what are the uses of such educational achievements in both the villages. The wider changes under neoliberalism, the social expectations from education, and the circumstances in which the young respondents have achieved their education often lead to anxious conversations. When I used to play cricket with my respondents, often I used to witness that a group used to leave while another group used to come in, because they were often, like in the first village, Mondagram, they often used to leave for work, and so it would be a different group after, let's say, a week's time. So they often had to leave. The group of youngsters in Badalpota, which was the aquacultural village, had a different trajectory altogether. It is from their group that Hasanur, like one of my respondents, the son of one of the richest landowning capitalists in the village, could pursue his bachelor's degree in hotel management. Hasanur used to spend time with Bokul and Moni, idle time discussing their girlfriends, phone, and life in general. But now he could exit this waiting phase as the specialization degree would afford him a job placement. In comparison to Mondagram, menial jobs were looked down upon in Badalpota. The young individuals from the scheduled caste community were the ones who were involved in the informal sector outside the village, while Muslims tried to stay and make use of the opportunities available within the village. I'll finish. So the reaction of towards the jobs taken by the youth are different in both the villages. It could be a result of greater amount of out-migration among the youth in Mondagram, the agricultural village, away from economic activities embedded in the social structure of the village. But the fact remains that through the use of remittance capital, they could affect a change in their lives and the lives of similar young individuals by incorporating them into their network. They could overcome the anxieties by exploiting the limited resources available and through their labor and their agency to go beyond the set customary norms of obtaining income and savings. However, the same could not be said for Badalpota, where education and occupation were coveted goods for social status and nothing less than a perfect government job with high level of education commanded respect. Those who could not achieve either had to perform menial work or join the high-risk business. Even though there were few exceptions who thought of education as conduit to social mobility, the majority of the respondents did not endorse the thesis of Dreze and Sen, rightly criticized by Jeffrey et al. 2008, that education is important to obtain other substantive freedoms. The perception of the community in the villages that a change in the economic situation, that is ownership of land, property, accumulation of savings and investment as capital brings to the fore the agency of the individuals to overcome such anxieties through different means. That is remittance capital to become upwardly mobile, establishing networks with individuals from the village and initiate them into a similar trajectory, and basically having an impact on a majority of the household to change the perception towards education and occupations. I'll finish here. Sorry.
থ্যাংক ইউ আব্দুল কাইয়ুম। এখন আমাদের প্রশ্নোত্তর পর্ব, আমাদের কিছু কোয়ারিজ, কিছু প্রশ্ন থাকবে, এটাই স্বাভাবিক। তো আপনারা অতি সংক্ষেপে প্রশ্ন করবেন, আপনাদের কোয়ারিজ বলবেন। আমরা 10 মিনিটের মধ্যে এই পর্বটা শেষ করব।
We have one more session, so please be pointed in your question and just the question, no comments, please.
My question is
চলে আসুন।
directed to Musarraf.
আচ্ছা,
I quite liked your analytical sketch in terms of the three moments. However, if you compare with the presidency experience, then from 1817, when the Hindu College was established, within 3-4 years, you have Henry Louis Vivian de Rosio, so you have the Young Bengal movement, which is early 1820s. So you have also a trend of what we call the Bengali liberalism coming out from there. And if you think about the long jury from Ram Mohan Vidyasagar down to Tagore, which is till first half of the 20th century, you have a long jury of the Bengali liberalism. So as opposed to Bomkim, who was a product of presidency, de Rosio and Young Bengal was also a product of presidency. So which is and these two different ideological articulations are actually poles apart. They don't talk to each other. Now, you see, now I agree with you in the context of Muslim kind of a social kind of emergence. I agree with you that we need to broaden the base from urban and the rural educated, but I'm quite not sure how the dialogue between the conservatives and the moderates, or let's say more liberal Muslims, would be there. As far as class solidarity is concerned, I'm completely with you. But as far as the ideological positions are concerned, because it didn't happen with the Bengali Hindus also, so I was thinking that how that could be possible.
You can take 3 more questions. Please raise your hand so we know. Nosheen there. Nosheen, Abid, sir here, and then, okay.
Assalamu alaikum and namaskar. My question goes to Afzal sir. When you're thinking about the self, construction of the self, so I think that when you're constructing it, there has to be a process of reconstruction and deconstruction. I'm saying this because you have taken 2 elements in the homogeneous category, that is language and religion. But I believe that language and religion is heterogeneous. It's just the other way around. It's not homogeneous but heterogeneous. Because when you go to the rural areas, the madrasas, the politics of language is there. The Arabic language taught over on the subjects of the pupils are being taught or forced on Arabic language. Now, my question to you is that when you deconstruct it, where lies the homogeneity? Language and religion, for me, is again heterogeneous. So what would be the third element, if you could put some light on that? The homogeneous character. Thank you.
My question is to Dr. Musharraf Hussain Khan. No one can deny the fact that the Muslims that time concentrated on Islamization, but it also no one can deny that this fact also that time education was exclusive in nature. You talked about Hindu college, but perhaps you know that Hindu college denied the admission of a son of a prostitute because students threatened to deregister themselves. And also the famous dialogue of principal of Fort William College, Pandit Chandra Vidyasagar, who himself said that we cannot take the son of Chasaj into our institution because of the chaos. So can it be said, sir, that the Muslims, they are violently or planfully kept aloof from the process of modernization and what liberalism, what you are saying?
Just the question, no comment, please.
So my question is to both Mosharraf Khan and the principal of, I forgot your name. My question is that why are we not changing the taxonomy of identity of Bengali Muslim, like Muslim Bengali, using Muslim as adjectival identity and using raciology to create an identity of Bengali race for the emancipation of lower castes, to create a universal language.
Thank you. Sorry, that's last question and then.
My question is to Professor Abdul Hussain. The reconstruction or construction of the self, I want to know a bit explanation of your. You just touch it, the self, and please, if you will shed some light on the exploration of the self. What you in the first 2 decades of 21st century, what kind of self do you want?